Hey guys, Ray from Love You RV and Boat. So I'm back to demo some more Bluetti equipment for you. Recently I did a test of their Charger 1, which is basically a charger that you can use off your vehicle's alternator to charge one of their power stations. Like this one, for example. This is the AC2A. So I reviewed this one last year and had an update in the summer when we used it on our boat. That was our main use case for it. It kind of fit nicely on one of our boat shelves, and we used it to charge a lot of phones and things like that, or if we needed an AC output for something, it could do a 1000 watt. But one thing I wanted it for is because it was nice and small and compact. I've reviewed some of their big, huge power stations, and usually they're after me to review those, but they're just, some of them are just getting too out of hand big. They're more for homeowners for home backup. We do use their AC240 on the boat because it is a waterproof one that we can leave outside on the boat. So they asked me if I wanted to review anything else, and there was one that I was interested in. I got the smaller one so that Anne could use it for her photography. So when we're out in the desert, we get nice clear starry nights, and she likes to do star trails, which is kind of a time lapse over hours where her camera is taking pictures, and she puts them all together in these interesting, what they call star trail photos, which make really cool. So she has a thing for her camera. It's like a little dummy battery, but it needs to plug into an AC port, because if she leaves her camera out there and the battery dies, it kind of ruins her project. So by putting one of these power stations out there, she can plug the camera into this battery, plugs into her camera, and then plugs into that, and basically the camera can run as long as she needs. But she found this one was too heavy for her. A lot of times she's going to have to, hike way out to a spot so that she can get a composition of a cactus or a rock outcropping or something. So I ended up having to cart out there and then go get it in the middle of the night, that sort of thing. But she'd really like to do that herself. But this thing weighs about 22 pounds, which was a little bit heavy for her to carry around. She doesn't have the greatest back. So I found one of the Bluettis. We've decided to go to the smallest baby Bluetti one, and I'll just get this off, which I thought was small, but look at this thing. It's so cute, just tiny, and it only weighs 7.9 pounds. So when I handed it to her and she felt the weight, she was very excited. Something that she can use. It only has an output of 300 watts on the AC, but that's plenty for running her little camera. The camera probably only takes 10 or 20 watts max, so she'll be able to plug that in. Also be useful for powering other things. It does have a DC input here, 12 to 28 volts, 200 watt max. So for testing, they sent me out there 200 watt solar panels so that I could give it a demo. This would be an interesting package for folks. Fair disclaimer, the stuff was sent to me as review samples, no charge. They don't pay me, and I have total editorial control over my video. Anyway, so I'm going to test this out for you, show you the features, and also we'll have a look at the solar panel, give you the look at its features, and then we'll do some charging tests. So just open up the accessory box. There's a cord for hooking up to solar panels. It has a standard MC4 connector on it, and then it's got an XT60 connection to go right in here to the DC and solar panel port, and then your regular cord to plug into the AC to charge in the home. You get an owner's manual and a warranty card. So they do have a 5-year warranty, which is pretty good. A lot of electronics, are 1 year, but these come with a 5-year warranty. It's got the basic layout of the bigger brothers. You got 2 ports here for plugging into 120 volt, 300 watts. Now 300 watts, you can't really run much. You're not going to be running Instapots or coffee makers or anything like that. You're mostly going to be using it for charging up things and running small items like fans. I use a soldering iron a lot, and it'll be able to run off that port. Along here you have your phone charging ports and stuff for charging like drones and things. There's a USB-C there and a couple of USB-A ports. Over here you got your standard 12-volt power port, 10 amp. So that can run a lot of things there. And then, like I say, the input there. They've really simplified these boxes down to make them very easy to use. You just have the power comes on, you get AC and DC. I'll show you that in a better light, and I'll show you the app, which is pretty cool. It's pretty good bang for the buck. You get a lot of ports here, but you get a really nice app to control everything with. And then on the side we have an AC input, and there's also a grounding port there with a screw. It's for some applications. And you got all the specs on the back there and some openings for the fan to work. I have done a teardown of one of these, so I can link to that AC70. I took all the case apart a couple months ago and showed you all inside how the build quality is, and it was pretty good. Came apart very easily. Here's the solar panel, and my first impression is they've really come a long way in their design. I reviewed some a couple years ago, and they were pretty basic. This one has quite a few extra features. One thing I like is it's rated IP67 for water resistance. The early ones, they didn't even want you to put out in the rain sort of thing, which was kind of dumb. So now they have the rating for leaving it out in the rain sort of thing. You know, you don't want to like submerge it in water very long or anything, but it's got, splash ratings, and you can leave it out in the rain. One interesting feature that I noticed, before you would just be able to kind of put this at a certain level, and there was kind of an elastic strap. This one has this interesting different levels. So 45 degrees, usually what you want to put at solar panels for most usage, but different times of the year you might want the angle to be different, so they have different settings for that. So that's kind of cool. And then this thing also has a nice snap, and then there is a band inside there. It's a little more elaborate. Nice rivets. Let's take a look at the wiring here. It's a little flap, store the wiring. And then you have your classic MC4 connectors. Pretty nice looking cord. Some of the specs. This is the SP200L, 200 watt mono. ETFE is the coating on it. Cell efficiency up to 23.4%. Max power voltage 20.52. Max current 9.75. Open circuit voltage 24.62. Short circuit current 10 amps. And then your operating temperature -C to +65. So it's all pretty basic stuff. And then they've printed all their different certifications in there. And they got their name and address there. That's cool. It's got kind of a fabric coating on it. And then a nice handle. Weighs in just under 20 pounds, I think 18.6 or so. So not too bad to carry around, and nice and flat for storage. That's one thing I like about the portable panels. There's always a trade-off, Usually the rigid glass panels are much more durable and long-lasting. Where these portable ones, I find they tend to not last as long. And they can be a little more prone because all the flexing. Sometimes you can crack the panels or the different connections inside and reduce the output, I found over the years, unless you're very careful. I do like too that they have a good selection of grommets here. Looks like they're pretty good. I've used some on the boat that had smaller grommets, and they weren't coated like that, and they tended to rust. And then this is kind of almost feels like a fiberboard probably some type of fiberglass board, and then the solar panel material is mounted to it. And another thing I noticed, I don't see that too often these days, it's not made in China, it says made in Vietnam. Let's undo it and hook it up. Okay, got her set up. We're lucky today, we have crystal clear blue sky, so good test. It is still only kind of mid-January, so not a summer test or anything. You get a little more output then, but the temperature's not too hot, so you should get more amperage through with a cooler panel. Let's just check here, getting about 10.24 amps on the short circuit test. Not too bad. Let's see what we can get into that little power station now. Okay, hooked up. Heard the fan come on. It's kind of slightly hear the fan there. Showing about 134 watts, 135 watts. So let's go in and have a look at the app. We can adjust everything. I think I might have to adjust the charging maybe. You know, there's like a quiet charge and a standard charge and a turbo charge. Right now the box is at 61%. Here's the Bluetti app. So you have various different devices that I've added to it. That was the charger in my AC70 and the AC2A I use on the boat. And the new one here is the AC2A. Let's click it. Should connect to it. Yeah, so it's showing 134 watts coming in, 20.8 volts, 6.4 amps. And down here you can turn off AC and DC, that sort of thing. Okay, so there's the settings here. And we're going to go to charging mode. Try turbo, that's supposed to be the fastest charging. There's also some eco settings. Sort of shuts down after a certain amount of time to save power, auto sleep, that sort of thing. Display it on the home page, and you can go to the user manuals. Their app is pretty well-rounded, and they've really added to it over the years. Works pretty good, connects through my Wi-Fi or Bluetooth. Oh yeah, I see that's changed. Now we're up to 160 watts. There we go. We're getting 8.1 amps now of charging, so that did make a difference. So that panel could vary on the actual power station. Maybe I'll just try hooking that panel up to one of my solar controllers, and we'll see what we get with that. Okay, here's my regular kind of RV charger. It goes into my battery system. Seeing about 166 watts, 10.1 amps. So pretty similar. So 160 watts isn't too bad given the time of year. The sun angle is fairly low, so it's going through more atmosphere. For example, right now I have a 400 watt array out here, and it's giving me about 310 or 20 watts right now currently. And in the summertime, I'll see almost right up to 400. So same thing here. If you doubled that, it'd be about 320. Right now it's doing about 160. It's also not quite peak sun, but pretty close. I noticed when I set it up, it just has 3 legs. It's got a leg positioned here and another position in this part of this solar panel, but there's one panel that doesn't have the leg. I guess that's just for the way it folds up. Seems pretty sturdy though. The only thing about these panels is because they're lightweight, wind can be a pretty big problem for them. Sometimes in the desert we get some pretty gusty winds. So that's when it's really handy to have a really good set of these grommets here. So they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 8 grommets. Because in the past, what I've done is I've actually put stakes on and staked them to the ground, gave up the tilt and put them on the ground. Or some people will hang them from their RV. So you take it and hang it straight up and down, and then you can strap it so it doesn't blow away. But yeah, that's one kind of downfall we find with portable panels. And if they do flip over, sometimes if you're in a rocky terrain, you can kind of scratch this. It kind of can deal with a few little scratches, but you get too much, then you start to lose your output. So that's the trade-off of getting a lightweight one that really folds up small. So that's charging up pretty fast. It already says 93%. There's the battery in here. I have to look exactly. I think it's like 200 and something amp hours, just a small battery. So it's going to charge up pretty fast. What I'm going to do is let it charge to 100% on the solar. Then I'm going to go in and we'll do a discharge it right down, and then we'll try a solar charge and see how long it takes, you know, on a day where you're getting about 160 watts, how long it's going to take to charge up the box completely. I'll give you a few use cases for this. So this is a portable freezer. Just have it plugged into the 12 volt there. You can see it's drawing maybe 50 watts or so. It's saying it can be about 3 hours runtime. So it could be something, this little box could be running it while you're in taking it to the store or something like that. Also, if you had the solar power going, then you could have all that wattage coming in, be running your little freezer at the same time. Or say a Starlink, it's about the wattage maybe a Starlink would draw. So you'd be able to have that on and then have the extra reserve capacity to maybe run it a few hours at night. I also like to use my soldering gun. I find these little boxes are super convenient because I'm always running around soldering things rather than having to get an extension cord or plug it into my main inverter or something. This thing's very convenient, or if I'm going to go help someone do some work, then this will be capable of running the soldering iron. Let's just turn the DC off there, and we'll see how much that draws. It gets rated for a max of 250. Oh, 211 watts there, 200. That's the low output, and then the soldering iron has a higher output. So it runs that pretty easily. Just a couple different use cases for the little box. It's not going to have huge storage capacity, but paired with the solar panel, it really helps, as you can do a lot of things with it while it's still charging up. Then at night, you can run things like lights in your RV that plug in, DC items. So it's really made for tent campers or very small RVers that don't really need much. They just need something to charge up things, and they don't want to go to the expense and stuff of having an inverter installed into the RV and plugs and that sort of thing. They can just have the little solar panel and this ready to go. So these Bluetti power stations do have what they call, I think, powerlifting mode. Just go into that and you can go powerlifting. And that allows you to run a device that's up to 600 watts. But it has to be something that's a resistive device, like a heater or curling iron or something like that. Something that just takes the power raw, because what they do is they lower the voltage down to make that happen. So if it's a sensitive electronic device, you don't want to run it in that mode. Anyway, here's a heater. Turn it on to fan. Now I'm going to go to the first level, which is normally 400 watts. But you can see it's drawn 281. So it is running. It's going to heat less, but it's capable of running this higher wattage load. But it is running it at a lower wattage. Go step up. I think there's, and this might overload it. I'll go to the next level on this heater. And yeah, it looks like we went into overload. We're getting a flashing here. Anyway, it does, the powerlifting does sort of work. I don't know if there's a lot of places that you would use that, but it's there just in case. I guess some applications people maybe want to run sometime a fan that draws more than that, and they'd still be able to run it. But at that wattage, you're going to drain this battery pretty quick anyway. But I thought I'd show you that test. So I'm just going to leave it in that mode, drawing 281 watts, which is pretty close to its max. And I'll just let it run down to it quits. And then we can try and see how much time it takes those panels to recharge the box, given my conditions here in January. So it can go down to 0 safely because they kind of leave a reserve of the battery pack in there that never can be run down. And that's just so you know it can run the Bluetooth and display an app and all that sort of thing, and also not harm the lithium battery pack. Speaking of the battery pack, I just had a look in the manual, and they are using lithium iron phosphate, LiFePO4. So that's the type of batteries you'll find in a lot of those drop-in replacement batteries in RVs and boats. And it is the safest chemistry. A lot of these power stations, especially when they first came out, they were using a little bit less safe chemistries to get the extra charging power and weight. There was always a trade-off between charging power and weight, but I think they've made better and better battery advancements and better battery management systems, so they've been able to switch these to a nice safe chemistry, which is one reason I like having on my boat. I not only want to have this type of battery chemistry for the power stations. The other thing is that type of chemistry has very long life. So I remember the first Jackery boxes, which were one of the first brands that became famous for these little stations, they would only be rated about 600 full charge cycles for their life rating, whereas a lot of these now, they're up 3,000, 4,000, some are even 6,000s as their lifetime ratings. I guess that's how they've been able to increase the warranty periods too, because they know you're not going to be able to wear out those batteries even in 5 years of use. Another neat feature it has is what's called pass-through charging, which basically means you can be using the AC output at its max 300 watts and plug the charger in to a house plug, and it will give you your 300 watts output, but also at the same time charge at 270 watts. So a total of 570 watts coming into the unit. Also, there is an accessory cable available. I guess it's optional, didn't come in the kit. But you plug into there and you can plug it into your car 12 volt a cigarette lighter style output socket, and you'll be able to charge somewhere near 100 watts using that cable. And you're not trapped using the app. Say you don't have a connection or phone or something's wrong and you want to do it manually. There's a sequence in the manual where you hold a button and you can get into a way to adjust all the settings manually through these three buttons. Okay, we're run right down, says zeros across the board. Click in here, BMS status standby, state of charge 0%. So we'll go plug her into that solar panel and see how long it takes on this day to fully charge that box. Okay, we'll plug the solar panels in. There we go. And we'll set a time. There we go. See what wattage we're getting. It's up to about 154 right now. So there's going to be quite a bit of variable in solar panel power production. One of the big things in solar panels is you have a really sunny, warm day. They can heat up, and the hotter they are, the less efficient they become. So usually solar panels are better on cool, sunny days and at higher elevation where there's less atmosphere between the sun and the panels. So it can be a lot of variability. That's why I'm telling you the time of the year. And outside temperature today is right around 70 Fahrenheit. But I took my thermal imaging gun and pointed at these solar panels and compared them to the glass panels, the rigid panels on my roof, and it's quite a bit of difference in temperature. So it's kind of one downfall of these type of panels is the amount of heat that can be generated, and they're just kind of a fiber board, so they don't really radiate much back out. And if people start to flat mount them onto their RVs and stuff, then that can even compound the problem. I just mentioned it. It's a trade-off when you're going for the ultralight, ultra-thin folding type panel. Don't expect the full wattage that's advertised. That's sort of a laboratory wattage at perfect conditions. In the real world, you're probably going to get about 160 watts in most times, closer to 200 during cool summer days at higher elevation, and less at warm days at lower elevation with a bit of haze in the sky. So it's been running about an hour and 10 minutes now. It's been pretty solid, right around 158, 160 watts. This has just turned green when it went over 80%. Now sometimes when they get past 80%, the charging may slow down to preserve the lithium batteries, the lifespan. But we'll see what happens. I'm just going to record on my phone and we'll see if there's any slowdown to that charging voltage or wattage. Okay, so it stayed at about a solid 158 watts or so. Just see what the time is. 83 minutes. There, it's starting to slow down. 135 watts. Now it's dropped down to 80 watts, so it must be getting very close to finishing off the charge. Taking quite a bit of time at 99%, slowly dropping down. Now I notice it dropped down to around 50 watts. Okay, she made it. Let's check the time. 94 minutes. Well, there you go, folks. Here's a look at the little AC2A Bluetti, smallest Bluetti power station, and the 200-watt solar panel, folding solar panel. Any questions or anything, just leave them in the comments below. Till next time, Ray from Love You RV and Boat. Cheers, guys.